God, well, anywhere beneath 14th Street.
And the fun and the cultural element.
It's like this self-induced schizophrenia.
Well, I just thought you might not like what I've done and want to do something about it.
Sorry, I never know when I'm going to get in trouble.
This is WVFP.
I don't know, like thinking about like what gives the images power or like what makes them successful. I mean, I guess it depends so much on the context, but I feel like for anyone that is like a conscious image producer at this moment in time, it's like a pretty pivotal question of like, okay, like if you want to produce more images and put them into the world, how do you face the enormous onslaught of images that we already consume on a day-to-day basis? And like what sort of like methodology are you going to come up with to give your image that you're going to put out there into this ocean of images some sort of meaning? Or
It's interesting how we came out of the 20th century with movies really being like the transnational, like the international language of how you could reach a lot of people and tell your story. And nobody, it's such a weird thing to think that if something happens to movies or the movie business, it's because everything's kind of a movie.
Yeah.
Like everything became image-based, not the other way where the culture left it.
Yeah.
But where it became everything.
Right.
Do you know?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
What do you think the effect is on cinema?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because I feel like it's not just the effect of like image culture. It's like the effect of like extreme acceleration and like the hyper capitalism of everything that like now you just have these movies that are like, could be AI generated and are like somewhat exchangeable and sort of have sort of lost any like real sense of like authorship, which I mean, I guess that sort of like parallels what we were talking about with images, where it's like most Marvel movies are sort of like copy and paste.
Yeah, well, I know that, I know the internet's debased the movie business, but I'm kind of wondering like as a form of art.
Yeah.
How the film is affected by the constant consumption of images.
Yeah.
Like, does it make movies and cinema even more of the international language? It's at the top of the image pile.
Yeah.
Or does it devalue it, because we're always consuming something that's playing?
Yeah.
Which is totally unthinkable.
Right.
I remember the first time I ever watched a YouTube video on my phone.
That was like 2007.
Whenever it was, I was like, wow, just like everything's different now.
Yeah, pretty monumental stuff.
It's weird to think that way, but it's true.
Yeah. No, I remember. I definitely, because I feel like at the time,
the very moment blogs disappeared was that second.
I also feel like at that time I was, like just I think I was like in school or something, and I was like starting to make some video work, and I was like appropriating some like home videotapes, and it was like so hard to get your hands on stuff, if you didn't have your own tapes. And like I would like ask my friends about like what they had in their archives and stuff, and then YouTube came, and it was just like, all right, well now, I mean, that's everywhere. But for filmmaking, I don't know. I mean, how many amazing movies that that have like really touched you have you seen in the last couple of years versus other times in history? I mean, I feel like it hasn't been like a easy time or like a really generative, like amazing time for people.
No, it's been a bad time for cinema.
I mean, I think it's a really challenging time. And I mean, I think we live in a time where, I mean, I think the image thing is a big problem where like, I forget who used this term that's like, mood board films, but I think it's a big problem. Like you just have these like people like cobbling together some like aesthetics that are sort of based off of like Pinterest boards and making films that way, which I would blame that sort of like approach to making work on, cinephilia and fetishizing of images. And I actually think that like, I mean, there's probably lots of different approaches in this time, but I feel like the most successful ways of making movies are, I feel like there's some things with actually thinking about generating actual vital situations, conversations between people.
Yeah, well, I
and
was
then,
just thinking like story writing's taken a real backseat
yeah,
to aesthetic, right?
right.
And it's like that's there's just a rush to like throw a bunch of aesthetic and a bunch of theme, and it's really the story's taken a backseat. I think like as far as like bigger pictures, you know, Hollywood goes. This is going to sound crazy, but you're in the movie business. Like it's like the night of the line producer. The line producers run the movie business now, and you know the creatives have been shifted a little. And I think everything's just like aesthetic based.
Right.
I kind of blame the consumer,
Yeah.
not to be rude, but I think storyline has taken a back seat in our age of films.
Well, yeah, and I mean, storyline is one thing, but then on the other hand, it's also just like original thought, right?